So we have a few more things to discuss. We're going to discuss a few things like Bitcoin and ledgers and tokens, all those things we're going to discuss. But before that, I want to take a moment to answer something that Sapna asked. She was wondering what that thing is called when you have this big banner kind of thing on the main landing page. There's an image, sometimes there's an image of a person, sometimes just a big message with a logo. It's called the hero section. Sapna, if you ever hire a developer to make a website for you, make sure you tell them that you want the hero section to have a photograph of yours. And that'll make that person's life so much simpler if they know exactly what you want from them. And if you feel that somebody can translate your words into tech jargon more easily, you always feel free to reach out to me and I can maybe help you with that. Right. So moving on back to technology. Now, what is Bitcoin? What is a blockchain? Let's talk about that first. Now, take, for example, you have a bunch of transactions. You bought, say, chapatis from some vendor on Urban Clap, and you bought rice from the local grocery store, and then you bought a bunch of things. That each transaction can be thought of as a block of transactions. Think of them as if you're doing a set of things in one shot, and that becomes a block. And I know it's a little vague and a little not actually true what I'm saying, but essentially that's what a block is. It's a bunch of transactions which have been grouped together and are being treated as a single entity by you. You are thinking of, you say, last night I went to the bank and I withdrew some money, and I went to the grocery store, bought some rice. I went to the chemist shop to buy some medicines for myself because I'm feeling sick. And then I came back home. And those transactions of going to the ATM, going to the grocery store, going through a chemist to buy things is a block. It's a block of things you did at that moment in time, right? Now, if you chain all that together and you say, on Tuesday, I did these 4 things. On Wednesday, I did this 5 other things. And on Thursday, I didn't do anything at all. I chilled at home. If you chain all that together and you combine them, if you place them next to each other, that becomes a blockchain, right? Now, keep this idea in mind that you are collecting transactions into blobs, and then you're connecting those blobs with each other into a chain, and that becomes a blockchain, because that is exactly what a blockchain in the technology world also is. Every transaction on a blockchain is not of you going and buying rice or you going and buying ice cream from a chemist shop. It's more like I owned a Bitcoin and I gave that Bitcoin to someone else. That is a transaction. So it's not, when I said it's a block and blockchain and all those things, I was giving an example of daily life because it's more relatable. But in reality, on the technology side, what you're essentially putting in that blockchain is the transfer of Bitcoin from person 1 to person 2, from person 2 to person 5, from person 5 back to person 1. All those things are what you're calling transactions, and you're putting into blocks. And when do those blocks happen? They change every 10 minutes. And keep this number in your head, because that is the standard they want to maintain, that you should be able to create a block of transactions every 10 minutes. All right. Again, I'm glossing over a lot of actual details, but just keep this number in mind. The 10 minutes is the standard for Bitcoin and blockchain, the technology, to achieve that. Creating blocks should take roughly 10 minutes. And once you create a block, you can add it to that blockchain. Again, I'm hiding a lot of details from people because it doesn't really matter. You have to, that block has to have a certain structure and a certain value. It's called the hash value. All those things are not important. What is really important is that you are agreeing as a group. Okay, I won't get to that yet. I'm going to answer that next. So you put that on the block, and since there's already a chain of blocks, you're adding something else to that block, so it becomes a blockchain, like we discussed before. So connect that with what I discussed before this. On Wednesday, you bought rice and went to the ATM. On Thursday, you, I don't know, did something else. You read the newspaper and you did something else. On Wednesday and Friday, you did nothing. And that was your blockchain of your life. On the technology side, similarly, person 1 transferred some Bitcoin to person 2. Person 2 bought Bitcoin from someone else. So that becomes the transactions that they're talking about. Now, where does the peer-to-peerless and distributed computing come in this? Remember, we're talking about distributed computing being the new way of doing technology. What goes on that blockchain has to be agreed by everybody else. Now, it's not enough for one person to say, you know, I gave Arvind 5 Bitcoin. It's not enough for that, for the world to believe that. Everybody in the world, 50% plus 1. So 50% of the world who are participating in blockchain technologies have to agree that, yes, Sai has in fact given 5 Bitcoin to Arvind. Arvind's wallet now contains 5 Bitcoins. 50% of the world plus 1. It's called the consensus mechanism. And that's how we create this chain of trust. If 50% plus 1 say something is true, it's true. It doesn't matter if they're saying the sky is green. It doesn't matter if they're saying that India is now in Pakistan. It doesn't matter. As long as 50% of the world is saying it's true, it's true. Okay. And that's the way blockchain technologies have evolved. They're ignoring any central authority saying, yes, the truth is that the sky is blue, or the truth is that we are located in the northern hemisphere, or the truth, none of those things matter. If the 50% plus one of the world agrees that we live in the southern hemisphere, we live in the southern hemisphere. That's the end of it. So that's the blockchain technology in a nutshell. And I'm hoping that this is making sense. If it's not making sense, please do put up your hand and ask a question, because I'd love to clarify, if I can, whatever I've explained in a little more detail, so that it's not as hand wavy as it seems. Does anybody have any questions? Let me scroll through the list of people on the screen. I think Sapna is saying something, but she's saying it in the mute voice.
No, I have a lot of questions, but I think that's going to take the entire time of the meeting.
Yes, I would appreciate if the questions are not super duper technical. If it's like some really complicated thing that I have to explain over 20 minutes, then
no, what I didn't understand when you said that 50% of the people say right, then it's right or wrong. That's something which I didn't understand in context to blockchain. So
all right, so let's take an example of the governing body of Toastmasters, right? Now, I know there's a chief district officer. I don't know what they're called. Mukta, for instance. Mukta says something, and essentially she is the spokesperson of that group. But essentially, she's saying only when she builds consensus with you guys. If, say, there's a contentious thing that should be split up into 3 groups, and out of the 7 people in charge, Mukta is just the person who is the spokesperson. Remember that. She's first among equals. She's not the person deciding everything. So if she says, I don't want to break up District 98 in 3 groups, but 5 of you override her. No, District 98 is very hard to manage. We're the people on the field. We don't want this. Let's break it up into 3 pieces. Then, and Mukta, obviously, she is the person in charge, and she's also a benevolent dictator. So she says, if the group feels that we should break up into 3 groups, we will go ahead and break up into 3 groups. That is consensus. 3 people or 3 or more. So in the case of 7 district officers, 3 plus 1, 50% plus 1 would be the number of people needed for the consensus to emerge from the group of leaders running the district. Does this make a little more sense?
Yeah.
Right. And blockchain is not like you and I can't vote on blockchains. The people voting the 50% plus 1 in the blockchain world are people who are deciding, who are creating those blocks. Like I was telling you, a block of transaction, they have to keep creating it, right? So they have to all agree, or 50% plus 1 have to agree that the blockchain, let's say Sachin creates a blockchain, a block. They have to agree that Sachin has the correct block that should be added to the blockchain, 50% plus 1. And it's not like they have to agree as in, say, call up somebody and say, yes, I agree. It's done transactionally through a mathematical and a software automated way. But essentially 50% plus 1 have to agree to something. And that's how this thing emerges, this blockchain emerges.
So blockchain is not cryptocurrency, right?
It uses cryptography to validate the block. That 50% plus 1 happens through cryptography. Okay. But it is cryptocurrency because blockchain. No, sorry, I take that back. The transfer of money of Bitcoin from me to Arvind, the Bitcoin itself is cryptocurrency, but the block that contains that Bitcoin is just something you can look up. You can just go to the internet and see. You'll just see a list of really random strings, but it won't really make much. You can't translate it back to human understandable form. Just by looking at the random string, you can't say that Sai transferred money to Arvind. But the block itself is not cryptocurrency. The contents of the block are cryptocurrency being transferred from person 1 to person 2. Okay. And how does that now comes the question, how does the money come out? How does the Bitcoin get created? So every time someone discovers, this is called discovery. If 50% plus 1 of the world agree that a block is correct and should be added to the blockchain, it's called, that person who created that block is said to have mined that block. And for mining that block, they get paid a little bit of money. They get paid a little bit of Bitcoin. So when I said I transferred 5 Bitcoin to Arvind, it could be that I was a miner, like I was mining for Bitcoin just like everybody else. And my 5 Bitcoin came from having mined a Bitcoin or a correct block way in the past. And that's how I earned my 5 Bitcoin. Similarly, people earn Bitcoins the same way. They mine a block, and in return, the network pays them a little bit of Bitcoin, which they collect, and then they can buy and sell Bitcoins to each other, pay each other through Bitcoin and things like that.
Got it. Okay, got it.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we can move on to the last segment of the meeting. I know technology is fun. I know discussing blockchain is fun, but we still have one more thing to cover. And I'm going to, if nobody has any questions, I'm going to move on to that. And that person who's going to help us do that is the person asking all the questions. I'm going to put Toastmaster Sapna on the spotlight and have her take charge of the meeting going forward.
Thank you very much for that. I really wish I was technically sound, but trust me, the theme of the day today is so apt for me. Tech jargons for dummies, because I literally feel I'm a dumb when it comes to technology. It just doesn't make sense to me. I hate Excel, I hate Microsoft, but still I have to work on it. That's the irony of my life. And right now my system is completely stuck, and I see Falgunan's face. I don't know if Falgunan is moving or not, but it's more of like a picture which is like, oh, so I'm sorry about that. This is what technology does to people like us, right? All right. Thank you so much. I am the general evaluator for the meeting. So I get to be the principal of the day today, and I get to say, and everything that you guys have not done good, and nothing that you guys have done good. Okay. But I'm going to flip the card a little bit. It's the first meeting of the new year. So let's just, say something nice and something which can be worked upon. So I'm going to be a little nicer to all of you and not run away with the whistle like Atul's principal did in his speech, right? All right. So moving into it, we had our only one and only speaker for the meeting today, which was Atul, and I felt bad about it. We should have had more people speaking today. And in order to go ahead and evaluate Atul's speech, I have someone who's practicing company secretary and trademark agent by profession. He's been a visiting faculty in a reputed college in Mumbai and is also a trainer at the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. He believes in constant development and challenging himself to come out of his comfort zone. He's been a Toastmaster since last 6 years and is presently serving as a president elect. No, he is a president already of Andheri Orators Toastmasters Club. So with a huge round of applause, please welcome our lead coach for the day, Sachin Toraskar. Over to you, Sachin.
Thank you, Toastmaster Sapna, for such a nice introduction. Our content coach of the day is someone who is an engineer in Daimler. His favorite book is What Got You Here Would Not Get You There, and it keeps him motivated for his continuous upgradation. Let's welcome with a big round of applause content coach of the day, Toastmaster Jai Singh. Over to you, Toastmaster Jai Singh.
Thank you, Toastmaster. Our one of the best and finest evaluator, a lead evaluator. I will try to fulfill my role. I will highlight few points, or let's say 3 points which I really like, and 3 points which I think we could improve. So first point which I like, to attract the audience, we have to create some noise, or we have to ask the question. You use the whistle, super. Second, we need some personal story because it is unique. You have that one. So 2 points complete. Good one. Third, excellent one. The message. Why I should hear you? You have the message. Join us. Join me. If someone is misusing his power, her power, then blow up visa. You have all these 3 points. Now for the improvements, 1 point. You have different speeches. Example, visual story, policeman story. And the connect was not so good. Example, if I remove the visual story, then independent police story could work. So speech should be aligned from top to bottom. That's the expectation. Second, yes, you have to use the whistle, but the standard word is whistleblower, which we are using in our organization. That you could use. Even in your organization, you have the whistleblower. Are you using it? Third point, you use so many times power. Let's handle the power properly. People using the misuse of power. Power can came from this and that. It looked like so much repetition. So 3 points which I really like. 3 points which you need to improve. Improvement is the story should be same. Second, less number of same words like power. That's all which I want to say. Overall, a great speech. Kudos and back to you. Thank you.
Toastmaster Sachin, you're on mute.
Okay. Our delivery coach of the day is someone who has been working with Reliance Jamnagar division. Her hobbies are outdoor activities, gardening, artwork, and traveling. She is design engineer, instrumentation design engineer. Let's welcome with a big round of applause our delivery coach of the day, Toastmaster Prachi. Over to you, Toastmaster Prachi.
Thank you, Toastmasters Sachin, for that warm introduction. Kudos to Toastmaster Atul for his speech. It's too tough to evaluate his astute skills. Still, let me give it a try. I would like to praise him for 3 points. First is the vocal variety that he used was fabulous. Speed was fluctuating from up and down. It was a roller coaster ride. Gestures like whistling, the prop that he used gave a full feel of it. The way he moved in front, closer, and moved back, that was exemplary. Role that he used, the roles that he put forward, gave us complete explanation. Space was fully utilized. Everything was fair, but we are supposed to give few recommendations. They were, he used the word shocked in the school. It could be explained in a better way, shocked and shattered. Next was tears were rolling down the eyes. That could have been expressed. Hell is at the bottom, heaven is at the top. So instead of right and left, that gesture could be changed for showing. Actions speak louder than words, and you did it very well. Thank you, and over to you, Toastmaster Sachin.
Thank you, Toastmaster Prachi. Now it's time for my feedback. I think the message of the speech was really very good. A small action can lead to bigger actions. So I like the message of the speech. Let's see how he can go to the next level. Number one thing, I think opening of the speech was not appropriate. It has to be something which can convey some message what the speech is all about, because in the initial or by the middle of the speech I was not understanding exactly what he wants to convey, but when he elaborated the anecdote of the police officer and they were taking his money, at that point of time I understood what this speech is all about. But before that I was a little bit blank what this speech is all about. So if that opening was appropriate, then I could get even more connected to the speech. So I think opening should be improved. The next point, I found that when you narrated the incident of confiscated of the whistle, at that point of time, it was the whistle of your grandfather. So that disappointment when you get something from your grandparent, that is something memorable thing. When you lose it, I think that kind of disappointment has to be seen on your facial expression. But at that point, that wasn't, you just rush away with the anecdote, with the content of the speech. So I think you should express it more effectively. The another thing, the next point is the end of the speech. You ended with a really very good message. but the energy or the power at the time of the ending of the speech, that was lacking. If you, I think if you ended with a big force, then that thought would have been even more impactful on the mind of the audiences, and it would be even that speech would be really very impactful. So over to you, general evaluator of the day.
Thank you so much for the evaluations. I'll give 30 seconds to our speaker, Atul, if he to, say if he agrees or he disagrees with any of the feedback. Over to you, Atul. Timer, 30 seconds. Akshay, can you change the card?
I thank all the astute evaluators for doing the SWOT analysis about my speech, and I have noted the strong points and the areas of improvement. And yeah, I'm struggling with the title of the speech still. I have changed a couple of times. Maybe I will further change the speech title so that people have little bit of connectivity with the title, between the title and the rest of the content. And I would like to hear more about it from veterans like Sapna and Arvind, if they can suggest some better speech title. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much. And Akshay, I apologize. I did not invite you at the beginning to inform about the timing, but all right. So I think all of them, everybody has exceeded. Jay has exceeded the timing.
Only lead coach Sachin has exceeded the time. The rest, everyone exceeded because it is 2 minutes only.
Only Prachi is within time. Jay and Sachin,
Yes.
both of them have exceeded the time.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now we move into the reports. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly call upon our second report. The first report is already done, the timer. I'm quickly going to call upon our counter for the day today, Falgunan Kumaran, somebody who's pretty positive and he's been tested positive as well, who's resting, at home. So I hand it over to Falgunan for his our counter report, please.
Thank you, General Evaluator Sapna. Starting with Sai, fabulous topic, but he had to speak more as he was a T-mod. So as there were 12 hours, so was used twice, and so where it was not appropriate. For example, so there are many ways, like the sentence goes in that manner. So could have been avoided. Many was repeated 4 times, like many, many, many. So it's understood, many itself is more. But seems to be a kind of a favorite word for Sai. He uses that a lot. I could figure at least 6-7 times. He used but. Right was used thrice, and basically once. There were 3 long pauses as well. So those are for Sai. Sapna, you didn't have any Rs and Ums during the earlier section, but when the table topics came, that's where you had 6 Rs. Yes was used as a filler word. Yeah, again in the table topics, but was used twice. Is something which you use as a crutch word, crutch phrase. So twice it was used. And also kind of a thing. And I would say something like that. It's again like a filler word, which I observed. Nirmala, you had 8 Rs. That's it. Arvind, I couldn't hear any. Sachin, you use Rs. You had normal Rs 4, but you had 4 long Rs. When you speak, that's something which you can observe. There are it goes like that. So 4 times I observed that long Rs. So was used where it's not required twice, and you had 1 long pause. Atul, during the prepared speeches, there was no R's or ums filler words. But when you gave your response, speaker response, there were 5 R's that came in. And there was one long pause during the speech that I'd observed. Akshay, there were 2 R's. Naveen had 3 R's. Like was used thrice. Yeah. Then Jay had 1 R's. But was used, which was not required there. And so also as a filler word was used, like so. First point that I would like to ask, so that so was not required. Yeah. That's my counter report. And back to you, General Evaluator Sapna.
Thank you very much for that, Falgunan. Now we move on to our the last report. So he's someone who's an astute leader, an astute communicator, someone whom I always look up to. And he's proven himself once again that he's the leader of the hour by taking up the grammarian role at the last minute. So please welcome, put your hands together, and please welcome our grammarian for the day, distinguished Toastmaster Arvind Nair.
Thank you, Sapna. Hello, Toastmasters. Here's the report for this evening's meeting. The word of the day was used by Sai thrice, Nirmala, Akshay, Prachi, and Atul once, and Sapna twice. The good usage of the language: exited home, shocked and shattered. Power is an addiction. Power is fragile. With great power comes great responsibility. Unleash anguish, an ingenious product. Walk the talk, synergize the topics with the team. Actions speak louder than words. The not so good usage of the language. Long ago in standard 2. So there was no need to say long ago. You could have just mentioned when I was in standard 2, that would have been better. I don't know if the Cambridge or any other dictionary has now adopted the word Almira, but I think it should have been a cupboard. Slowly and slowly grew up. So when I grew up, or as the years passed, that could have been, you are growing very slowly. You can either shoot up or, but the better way would be to say as the years passed. Various different roles. Why twice? It's various means different also. So just say various roles or different roles. People will lose the job. It's actually people will lose the job. And that is spelled with the 1 O, L-O-S. We have to be careful with the word ADAPT or ADOPT. It's adapt and adopt. So those have to be used accordingly and pronounced correctly. Reiterating once again the pronunciation for the article THE. It has to be the pencil, but the aeroplane. So vowel sounding word which follows will take the pronunciation as THEE. Those, and I'm happy to say there were no errors in pronunciation. We're getting better. The advanced club is getting better. Thank you, and over to you, Gender Evaluator.
Thank you so much for that, Arvind. I don't know how many of you are actually scared speaking in front of Arvind, but I always am. So something or the other will always come up. But thank you so much. I think it was a lovely report. Always something new to learn. All right, moving into my report. So congratulations, first of all, Happy New Year to everyone, and congratulations for making it to the meeting today. I think the ExCom has been struggling from past 3 to 4 weeks by asking everybody to come and take up roles, and our members are sitting silently unless, you know, somebody started the movement and said, okay, who are going to take these many roles? And that's when the roles got filled up. So I think everybody needs to now buck up, pull up their socks, because it's time for ISC, it's time for Table Topics contest. And I would want to see our Toastmasters Club and our Toastmasters moving ahead till the district level. Right, so please start picking up, just pick up the phone as well and start calling your fellow Toastmasters. I don't see Kunal today, but I know I spoke to him on WhatsApp chat, because I didn't read the second page of the agenda. So that is something which the ExCom needs to ensure, that the agenda, instead of coming it like an hour before the meeting, if it can be well planned, and it can come probably 48 hours or at least 24 hours before the meeting. So our meetings need to be better planned. If our VP Education or any one of our ExCom requires some assistance, please reach out to the club members so that we all can pitch in and we can help each other out. Because this club is for our own development, and let's help our ExCom if they require any help. Moving into, I think I love the theme today. Tech jargons for dummies. I am one of them. I count myself one of them. And yes, I do talk to myself a lot. Sai, you can take me as an example and create one tech robot for yours. You trust me, it will be really good. Correct. So I really liked the theme. I love the opening, Sai. You're very energetic. And I really like the way that, you picked me up today, and you asked, like, you talk about why you're still stuck to Toastmasters for so long. So I really like that particular activity and that connect that you're trying to build with all the audiences, because that really helps even to influence our guests. Moving into presiding officer Nirmala, always a positive smile and a positive message from you, getting into the new year and the resolutions, and introducing the guests. And I really, one thing which I really appreciate, you never forget that there are guests in the meeting, and you always take out time to introduce them and to ask them to come online and come on camera and talk about. Getting into the roles, I think, thank you so much. First of all, Arvind, I think a special thank you to you for taking up the role, and thanks to Sai for his presence of mind. The moment he saw Arvind has joined, he readily moved the grammarian role to Arvind. And thank you, Falgunan, for trying to be a champ today, being too positive. I think triple four, like what, raised to the power 4 positive, with trying to play 2 roles. But luckily, Arvind came in and it was all sorted. Lovely speech, Atul. I think I always am inspired by your speeches. You give such real life speeches. I'm not really sure, at times I just feel that I've listened to so many different versions of your speeches now, that I'm trying to build up a story as to how Atul was really brought up to where it is. So one day probably I will sit with you and just try and understand about your entire story, because it is so realistic. I don't know how many of those instances are actually real or made up, but your stories are so realistic that I get hooked onto it. I don't think anyone in the audience would not want to listen to what Atul has to speak on a particular day. So all the best for your ISC. I know that you're prepping up for it, and you have so many giving, you have the best of the lot out here to tell you what you've not done well, instead of telling you what you've done good. So I think kudos to that, and all the best for your preparation. Thank you so much, Akshay. I know I missed out on calling you out, but you've been taking note of all the timings and ensuring that you show the timer cards. The moment I realized when Jay was speaking that I've not called out Akshay, but Akshay showed up the cards on time. So I'm glad for that. So thank you so much for your presence of mind today. And thank you so much to my evaluators as well, Sachin, Prachi, and Jay, for always being there and taking up roles and helping our speakers get better. So that's about it, I think, from my side. The overall meeting was good. The only request is that please, to all the club members, I think if we all can pick up one member and just give them a call and ask them why they're not attending meetings, and when do they start to plan, when will they attend the next meeting. And I know I'm saying a lot, I need to work upon it. That's become like a crutch word for me. That will be great. Let's help our ExCom in order to ensure that our members that we have in the club start attending meetings, because our meetings are really good, and it really helps all of us as speakers to improve in our communication. With this, and we have a lot of time at hand, I just hope we had one more speaker, by the way. But with this, I hand it back over to our Toastmaster of the day, Sai.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Sapna. That was a detailed and a very positive evaluation that you delivered to the club with encouraging areas of improvement. I really appreciate the effort you put into your evaluations. It makes us stronger as a club to have you in charge. And yes, I must call out and appreciate Toastmaster Arvind. His timing couldn't have been better. There are things like, doing things at the last minute. Arvind took it to the next level. He did it at the last second. He comes in and he gets slammed with the role and he does it to perfection. Thank you so much for stepping up.
I rushed after finishing an evaluation of the BTM meeting. I was just keeping my fingers crossed that I don't get late here.
and that's probably why your name said Eval 3 when you came in. You noticed that it was Eval 3 anyway. Thank you so much. I do have a few more things in technology to talk about, but before I do that, let me launch the polls for the best table topic speaker so that we get our say on that. Toastmaster Akshay, can you confirm for me? I'm just going to read out the names of the people who I think met their timing requirements. One was you, speaker one was you who met your timing requirements. Sapna was speaker number 2. I think speaker number 3, Sachin, missed his timing. Then there's Naveen, Jay, and myself, Sai. So I have 5 people. Akshay, Sapna. Okay, I got a thumbs up. Cool. I want to launch the poll. Please continue your voting on the side while I go ahead and discuss a few other things that you might have heard about. For example, what is freemium? Freemium is a way where you might sign up for a product, and the first version or some features are available to you for free, and then they upgrade it and say, if you want to do anything more, you have to pay for it or you have to buy a subscription or something like that. For example, in apps, there are the in-app purchases. That's essentially a way to say, when you're working with the basic app without buying anything, you're working in the free version. Once you start buying things, you start paying for stuff. That's the free plus premium. That's the combination of the word freemium. Then what other open source? Let's talk about open source. You must have heard open source Linux. You must have heard of Unix. All those things are open source. Maybe not Unix. Linux definitely is open source. The idea behind software is that you can't really prevent people from copying. There was a time when Microsoft used to be very, very difficult to deal with because they used to be so concerned about people stealing their ideas and stealing their code. But then this guy called Richard Stallman came around and he said, listen, you know what? You really can't control code. And it looks like I have to cast a tie-breaking vote. And I have decided who I'm going to vote for to break the tie for the best table topic speaker. Yeah, so this guy called Richard Stallman. He said, code, you can't really restrict code from being spread. So you should allow people to see the code, but you should, if you want to charge them for it, you have to maybe give support or add some other benefits that you get from paying for that code. That's the open source movement where people can read through your code and copy it if they want. I mean, there's nothing stopping me from going to a certain website called GitHub and pulling all the content from Linux and launching my own Linux. And that's why you have so many distributions on Linux. And now Windows itself, Microsoft itself has decided to support Linux as an operating system. So in the 1990s, Microsoft used to be bent on crushing and destroying Linux. And in 2022, Microsoft is launching its own support for Linux. That's how the wheels turn in technology. What was horrible before becomes good later, and so on and so forth. So with this, I want to end my section of the meeting, and hand charge back to the presiding officer. I hope this overview of technology has piqued your interest in technology. Don't be afraid. Technology is mostly a matter of knowing words and what they mean in the context of other words. If you have a good grasp of English, I think most words sort of work. Most jargon sort of works itself out in technology, at least. So I'm hoping that this was informative. It was interesting. Any questions, please feel free to reach out. Or if you have questions now, we can discuss it. We have plenty of time. If not, I am going to call up our presiding officer for the day, and I will be sending the results of the table topics contest to her privately. Other than that, this is my time. This is the end of my time on the spotlight. Back to you, presiding officer Nirmala.
Thank you. Thank you, Toastmaster Sai. Today's meeting was different. We touched on an interesting, relevant, current, and futuristic subject, which Toastmaster Sai ruled, and many of us spoke about. The subject was technical, but with infused humor, it made an overall interesting session. Do you agree with me? Does everyone agree with me? Wow. Thank you.
Yes, we know that we have an expert on blockchain and cryptograph, that is Sai. If we are finding ourselves in trouble, we will refer it to him.
Yeah, we know where whom to approach. Somehow it's given me a knock that machine learning, artificial intelligence, cryptocurrencies, all these things will soon take over mankind. And if we don't hurry up and adapt to this change, as Sachin said today, it pays to upgrade yourself with time and survive or become obsolete. The choice is yours. That was such a powerful, impactful statement he made. I would request our guest to speak. We have a guest here. Navin, the meeting is over. We are at the closing. Would you like to share your
He's left.
experience? He's left.
He's left.
not
No,
here.
he's not there.
He's not there. He's not there. No worries. Okay, can we have are the certificates ready?
Toastmasters and Nirmala, I need to launch one more poll for the best auxiliary role player.
Please.
Let me do that. Let me quickly set up that poll and launch it. In the meanwhile, please continue with.
Yeah, okay. I would like to say that our next meeting is on 22nd Jan. We will also have the AD visit, our area director visiting us. So please, it's a sincere, humble request that please take up roles early. As Sapna said, we have to release the agenda at least one day before. We cannot keep it, we cannot delay it so long and just release it, say 1 hour before. So it's a sincere request to each one of you to please come forward and help us.
I am ready to take up a role because I have to finish my project too. So I have to evaluate a speech.
So
I will take speaker slot.
okay, so is any we are recording this, right? Wow.
Yeah, we are recording and we are on record.
We are on record.
Can we also take a group photo?
Yeah.
Speech for
Or
mine
can
also.
smile.
Perfect.
22nd, I
perfect.
will
Hey, you
also
are
do a
there?
speech.
Yeah, so I'll release the role, release the content. Please add your names to it today itself so that we can take it forward from today onwards.
Yes.
Yeah, so 22nd is the meeting. We'll have the AD visit us, our area director visit us. Let's make it a rocking meeting. I mean, and after which we also have certain other things planned. Let's see, we'll release it, release the agenda, you'll know what it is.